I'll guarantee you'll have something out here you wouldn't find on every corner.
So when actually did the Misfits start?
Misfits started actually in 77.
77, so with the big punk explosion, along came the Misfits.
Yeah.
Glenn was more avant-garde, I guess you could say, than all the kids who were in school at his time. And we went to Lodi High School, both of us. Glenn was out of school before I got in.
Like, what did you do before the Misfits?
I got drunk a lot, went out and went crazy and got in a lot of trouble and that kind of shit.
One night, me, Glenn, and Budgie, his real name Michael Fallon, we were out punking around. We were totally messed up. And here we are busting windows. We busted the window on the post office, right?
Right.
So we ran.
What town is this?
Lodi, New Jersey.
Lodi is located in Bergen County in the northeastern part of the state. It is 9 miles from New York City. Lodi is approximately 2 square miles large. Lodi may be regarded as a commuter town as 3 major highways, Route 17, 46, and 80, cross through it. The land of Lodi was originally owned by the Lenni Lenape Indians. Its earlier history shows that it was sold to English settlers and named New Barbados, then Polyfly. It was incorporated in 1825 and named after the Lodi in northern Italy, a province of Milan. Lodi has a multitude of neighborhoods. Residents have strong community bonds. They serve to promote a feeling of small-town community and warmth. Small businesses flourish from a host of pizzerias.
Marilyn, look at this pair. How many Napoletans does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Sandwich shops.
Show them all the homemade pasta here. Where are you going to get stuff like this? You got to go to Sicily to get shit like this.
And hot dog vendors.
We don't serve anything from the jar to can. Everything is fresh.
There are several fine restaurants in the community. There are apparel stores, video rental firms, car dealerships, and a nightclub.
Get the fuck out. Go. Let's go.
Several ties to the past in Lodi are kept through local chapters of the VFW and American Legion. The oldest cemetery in the borough dates back to colonial days. The most recent survey shows Lodi to have a population of 22,600.
When my son, who's only 18, comes to visit from Florida, first place he wants to come is to Cardi's.
You know, it's a mom and pop store, which you don't find too often anymore, and this is, you know, very unique.
But when I was growing up, I would say vocally, Elvis, Jim Morrison, Bill Medley, which is a big shock to a lot of people.
Of the Righteous Brothers, yeah.
Great singer, and Roy Orbison.
No matter what the music is, he's not singing falsetto. He's hitting the notes. He's doing it the right way.
Right. So that's his
voice. Now, is he trying to duplicate, Elvis Presley or whomever? I don't think so. Maybe he's taking some style, because Glenn was always himself.
Yeah, I started out as a drum tech.
Did you?
Yeah.
Now, I read that when you were 11, you actually toured. You were a roadie, and then you took up bass after that.
Yeah, no, I didn't tour. It's just like local shows.
And I wanted to play bass. It was simple. Bass is so easy.
And then I got a gig singing, so...
Some people had heard me singing. Our friends getting crazy and blah, blah, blah. I'm a little kid. And they asked me to come and try out for their band. And I said, I'll try out. But I want to make sure we do original songs, too, and not just covers, when you kids do cover songs.
The drummer was like an asshole, too, so I peed all on his drums.
I had to clean his drums after everything. With the paste and everything. It's just like, hey, Mr. Spider, peed all over his set.
Yeah, those.
I quit. That was it. I was out. And I never looked back.
And then you just started singing.
Yeah. So a little kid with this big voice.
What year was this?
Oh, God. It had to be
1970,
71.
Oh, that early?
Yeah.
71.
77, around there, yeah.
I was born in New York, and then I lived in Jersey, in Lodi. My parents bought me the drums. My uncle had a bar in New York. Buddy Rich was a drummer, and he taught me how to play drums.
I had played sports all through high school, mostly football and basketball, a little bit of baseball. And what happened was that I wasn't about it. I was a senior in high school. I was driving. I had my license.
I wasn't one of those people who played their whole life, you know.
I heard Search and Destroy by Iggy Pop, and all of a sudden, getting hit on the football field wasn't half as aggressive as that. And I just said, well, if I'm going to take it to the hoop, I'm going to do this. I had already aced the high school. I only had a couple of classes, so I had half the day not to do anything.
I knew Glenn Danzig, or as they call him now, Glenn Danzig.
Jerry wasn't in the first incarnation of the Misfits.
Well, who was? There was only 3 of you, right?
If you look at some of those lawsuits, Glenn claims that he was using the Misfits name in the fall of '76. So guys like Jimmy Battle and Diane DiPiazza and Manny and Mr. Jim Catania are, all involved during that time, right up until March when Jerry joins the band.
There was the drummer, that's on the Bullet record, right? Not the guy who's on the Cool record, but the guy who's on the Bullet record, Mr. Jim.
Yeah.
It's him, me, and this girl on bass.
Basically, well, so-and-so wants to jam, let's jam, put something together, I mean, I was in, I don't know how many different bands when I was a kid. In some with Glenn, and some with Jerry, not Jerry, the other Jerry.
Jerry Byers, Manny Martínez. Remember Manny Martínez kicked Byers' ass for nothing? Give him a welt this big on his head at the firehouse? Remember that? I do. Don't deny me, man. Chili's still here. Tommy B. Come on, Freddie Linzer? Big Freddie Linzer? Remember he split his nuts on the fence? Tried to sneak into the...
I was always involved in bands.
What was the bands you were in before the Misfits? Did they do anything?
No.
Did you play, or was it just basement garage stuff?
I played. Not a lot, though. Like, here and there, local junk, you know what I mean? It wasn't a touring band or anything like that.
What exactly was Pony? That was a band that you were in before the Misfits?
Yes. Pony means Prostitutes of New York.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, we used to be dressed with skin diving helmets, and all you could see was our eyes. And I remember I used to have to drill holes so I could hear the music better. I think it was our first gig, and our last. The bass player, Tony Leak, he got dressed up all in his underwear and plastic wrapping all over his body. And I asked him why he did that, and he said because we're all plastic. We were just doing rock music and stuff like that. It was a commercial band. We used to do Doors and Elton John. We did a song by Elton John.
Just all cover stuff.
Huh?
Cover stuff.
Yeah, commercial. Charlie Jones, and then they wanted to do Grateful Dead and stuff like that. So we ended up breaking up after that gig. I went along with Glenn because I knew he had talent. Glenn and I started the Misfits in the basement of Glenn's house. It was just me and him, and he was playing the piano and I was playing the drums. And we wrote some songs and stuff like that.
I put my own thing together. I'm not going to do the cover band thing. I'm going to do my own songs, and just started putting people together, and that's what happened.
Playing a piano, electric piano and stuff like that, and
right.
And drums. That was it. And then we were playing in Glenn's basement, and Glenn told me, well, we need a bass player.
Well, we used to hang around. I was friends with Jerry and some of the other guys we hung around with. Jerry and I had, Jerry was friends with my friend Billy. Billy was friends with me. We all hung around together. There was a bunch of us. I only knew Glenn probably just from name, you know what I mean? But I didn't really know him. We used to hang around down by Redstone Lane and stuff like that.
Jerry being Jerry Owen.
Jerry Owen, yes. Manny Martínez happened to live across the park, And I don't know how, I can't remember how Jerry got hooked up with Manny and they were still in the band.
The side of his house was at the gate to the park, so I would hear them playing and shit, and I never thought much about it. Manny was a bit jazzier than the kind of shit I like to play. He'd go down there and jam to Santana for you and shit like that. And for me, I didn't want to hear Santana play to Santana.
And then we went to my house, and we played at my house, and my neighbor, her name was Patricia, she had a boyfriend, and that was Jerry. I seen the bass guitar in the back of his car, and I said, we got a bass player, and we started practicing together.
So Manny introduced me to Glenn, and that's how we formed the band. I think that's, there you go. There is an appraisal. Manny introduces Glenn to Jerry, and there you go. That's the fucking band.
I really wanted to write music, was really what it was about. And I didn't want to learn anybody else's stuff. So in February, I got my guitar and I started learning.
I ordered it for Christmas, and it didn't come in until like February. And I took lessons in March, and in April I was in a band.
Why did you get a bass? Where did that come
Well,
was it just a
the
random...
kid that sat next to me, we were talking about music, and I was playing sports at the time. I said, I'd really like to play guitar. I've been following music my whole life. And he goes to me, he says, you should get this guitar. I said, I don't know if I got the patience. He said, get a bass. He says, you just play single notes, He was absolutely right, man. Saved me so much wear and tear.
Sounds like a foghorn. I could walk right in. I heard him from the parking lot. It was great.
Yeah, that's funny. He comes and he goes, John told me. Oh, no, who told me? John goes, well, when you get there, Jerry will be playing the bass so loud, no one will be able to talk to him.
Which was true. Roger and I just...
I came in and turned all my amps on.
Glenn was like a big brother to me in the music scene. I was 17 when I started in the band. Mm-hmm. And Glenn was, he's about 4 years older than me.
And eventually started playing out around New Jersey and New York.
So I decided to chase Dee Dee and... be a bass player in New York City.
What was the sound of the original Misfits when you first formed? This will be interesting. Let's see what he says here. Jerry Only. The sound of the Misfits was very Talking Heads-ish, Devo type sound. I'd say with keyboards at the time. Wow. I stand by everything I said in the first episodes. If you have not watched them, check them out. We talk in-depthly about the three-piece that was the Misfits in 77. They're just like an art rock Doors. That's what they are. They're just the Doors, man. Straight up.
Eventually the punk rock movement is now happening. This is 1977. So now Hilly's holding these showcases for up and coming bands that are unknown to play, to play their material.
Our first gig here in the city was at CB's. We did 3 audition shows. We never got billing. We brought all our fans and we never got paid.
We were kind of inseminated there and then just split. We moved into other venues and other avenues.
We really didn't know what we were doing yet. We were feeling our way in.
CBGB's in New York. I had my new drums and the mics that were hooked up to all the, the snare drum, the tom-toms and the bass and all that, and the cymbals. Well, the one that was hooked up to the snare, it had a short in it. And every time I hit the snare drum and it touched the rim, I would get a shock. I played 10 songs like that. And then my foot pedal broke while we were playing, so I had to play without a bass drum
and getting shocked.
And getting shocked in my hand. Yeah, that was a bad time.
Good times.
The Misfits only played CB's, I believe, one time before I was in the band. Probably shouldn't say this, but if I remember correctly, Hilly, the owner, promised him X amount of dollars. He never paid him, and Glenn said, F you, so to speak, we'll never play here again. So Max's kind of became our home after that.
What kind of music was Glenn into when you first met him? Jerry Only. I don't know if you know a band called The Adverts. Mike Stacks. Yeah, Jerry Only. Glenn was into The Adverts. He was into Generation X. We were all into The Damned. Along those lines, basically British punk.
And I was hanging out with Glenn, and we were going to New York to see bands and hanging out. And I kind of got a feel for the scene. And, at first I was very unfamiliar with the whole punk scene and all that kind of stuff, but Glenn was. He was familiar with it. So we got to see bands like The Damned, The Clash, The Jam.
Glenn and I had already started the Misfits, and we had done some shows. And what happened was that we went to CBGB's and we walked in, and it was jammed.
And we were down there, and he looked like, your average guy, and I looked like your average guy, and we were just hanging around. And in walked the Ramones, and they looked like an army. They come walking through the door, and all four of them looked the same. And you looked at them, and in the whole room, you knew right away who was in the band and who wasn't.
Yeah.
There's a Ramone. There's a Ramone. Everybody, the Ramones are here. The Ramones. I was like, there's a Ramone.
Everybody turns around, and you can tell if you're scattered throughout 1,000 people, who's in the band. It's very easy to tell.
Then from there, when I left the band, as far as I know, and I probably know as much as you, they started going into the horror end of the scene, and I left the band just before that.
When I was a little kid, I went into the store, at lunchtime to get a comic book or two. I had a pocket full of money, and I see this book staring at me, and it's a Famous Monsters annual. That was it. And I read that book over and over about, I don't know how many times.
We tried, we couldn't find out what we were really about for the first year, and then we came up with the horror image, and we were like, well, look, we're all into horror films.
Do you know this face? Do you know this voice?
A dinner was served for three at Dracula's house by the sea. The hors d'oeuvres were fine, but I choked on my wine when I learned that the main course was me.
Yes, that's right. It's Roland, Philadelphia's first horror movie host, and he's my special guest, and we're presenting the scarifying double feature Witching Time and Silent Scream next on Saturday Night Did.
Because I'd always watched horror movies every week. We had them here. We had the Zachary show, which was daytime with bands and stuff. My brothers all watched that, because they were into the music, all my older brothers. And we also had Chiller Theater here every Friday and Saturday night. It was horror movies. Okay, then we had this other Channel 9 thing, which was Monster Theater or something like that, or Horror Theater or something.
And that was all the 50s shows?
50s and 60s stuff. Plan 9 was the opening sequence on Chiller Theater. That and a bunch of other stuff. It was all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty cool stuff we got to see. I was always interested in that stuff. I just always loved those movies. Because everything else was kind of just bland and didn't do anything. It was kind of, war movies just left me cold, there was who cares?
The horror image came to us, and then we started evolving with it, and then each individual in the band has a slightly different look. We're not clones of each other. Everybody's got a little bit of slightly different image, and I think it's important that each person in the band develops that image themselves, so they're very personal with it, that they work very hard on their image.
You guys were real big on horror movies. Jerry only, oh yeah. And that was when the band was really at its best, to be honest with you. The band was really cranking at that point, because that's what it was. It was a 50s horror band. If we would have marketed it that way, we could have done very well.
It wasn't immediately when I left the band, but I would say within 6 months to a year, tops.
Right.
The music was the same. The core of the music was the same. The lyrics, what Glenn was writing about, was the same. I think the music was very good. Some things were changed. But, when I was in the band, and you could listen to the album, it's not geared toward the horror punk scene that everything is today. Correct. So that image was coming about, for me, like toward the middle to the end when I was leaving.
There's one magical, haunted evening each year when all the scary creatures come out to prowl through every neighborhood.
There's a feeling I've always gotten at Halloween time. It's a feeling that just snapped me right up. It's just something that I really enjoyed the feeling. It's something in the air. And you can smell it almost. You can almost touch it, reach out and touch it. And that's that feeling that I like. My favorite time of the year is the Halloween fest.
My friend, can your heart stand the shocking facts about grave robbers from outer space?
We were totally ours in 79.
79?
I was the Night of Living Dead band. It was Jerry, me, Joey Image on drums, and Bobby Steele on guitar.